project manager and an expert for an SBRC. I sit down with self-builders answering their questions and also deliver lots of courses to help educate the sector and anyone want to build their home. As well as that, I'm chair of the National Customer Self-Build Association. I run a business called Ellsworth Projects that build houses, so we're out there in the mud and the weather, doing it to get these projects built. And I also work with businesses, and I'm an exec director, helping them steer through the self-build industry.
Because you used to be the managing director of a company that did the whole gambit, didn't you, basically?
Yes, yeah, I was managing director of Potten until about a year ago, and then stepped into my own business. And that gave me a real good, broad experience base. We would work with customers from designing their house and getting planning permission right through to manufacturing and building their structures and project managing their builds.
So planning it and getting it done.
Yeah, everything really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course, Potten, you mentioned, we were in the Potten house with that amazing cinema room in there. Could have just stayed in there, I must be honest. That was wicked. Thank you, Mike. Welcome. Next up, only doing it in this order, so don't feel left out yet. We've got Chris Oram. Introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Chris Oram. I work for ICF Supplies. We're technical sales. I'm in technical sales. We supply the Nudura ICF blocks. That's insulated concrete formwork. It's a polystyrene block that you build like Lego, and when you've got the shape that you want, you pour it with concrete. So it offers something that's very thermally effective, and sound is very, very quiet and strong and easy airtight. So it's serves the role of a very efficient wall system.
Yeah, to make it in the first place, giving you the form, and then to provide the insulation afterwards. I mean, I looked at that when we went walking around. I think it featured on it was either the welcome one. I think it was the first proper roaming camera, and I was just like, oh my God, that's incredible. Sometimes the simplest things.
Indeed, I've been in the ICF. We're working with ICF for about 12 years now, and from the moment I understood it right at the beginning, and I got the feedback from customers, absolutely delighted customers, I thought, why isn't every house being done, or even many, many more? And it's been growing over the years, but I would have personally expected it to have grown a lot more because of the positive nature, the positive feedback that I get from
I can almost imagine your biggest challenge is unfounded cynicism, because you look at it and go, surely not. But as soon as it's explained to me, I was like, oh my God, that is amazing. So you've got to allow them to, or they've got to allow themselves to listen to what it is that you do.
I think we've had more success from self-builders because they take time. They're usually going to live in these houses,
yeah,
and so they want something that's proven and something that they can be involved with. So quite often they will build themselves. So it's something that they can build themselves, but also they want the best. And when they talk to people, the benefits that it offers really offers them the best outcome and the end product.
Yeah.
So with self-builders, it's become very, very popular.
I can believe it. I definitely can believe it. It was impressive. And last but by absolutely no means least, someone had to be, Yendai from Eco Energy Environment.
That's right.
Introduce.
So Yendai, founding director of Eco Energy Environment. Basically, I've been involved in the industry of solar, battery storage, electric vehicle chargers. I've been involved for nearly 20 years. And because I was involved from financing side originally, and then I got involved, and when I decided to set up my own company, which was nearly 14 years ago, I identified the niche market of the self-build sector. And I've been concentrating on that ever since, although we now also have a commercial arm. But this has always been my heartfelt area that I really enjoy, because every project is different. And to see something from a hole in the ground to going back 2 years, 3 years later to see it finally landscaped and finally take some really nice photos is always a joy. It's completely different to the rest of the industry that retrofits on an existing property, going down a suburban street and every house is the same. The self-build sector is completely different. And having a bit of a European background, it's in the UK, as we were saying earlier on, it's a very niche market. It's a niche market. It's growing, and there's loads of scope. But in comparison to the rest of Europe, where it's quite the norm to do your own self-build.
Yeah, what was the stat you said? 70-something% in Austria, for example.
Yes, and
Of the homes are self-build ones.
Well, my wife is actually Austrian.
Oh, right. Okay. So is that where your original?
Well, I'm actually half French, and that's another story, because historically the French always rented their property whilst they were working, putting money to one side to buy land and build their retirement home. And they would literally spend their summer holidays building bit by bit.
That was true self-build.
Oh, that's, yeah, like over 10, 15, 20 years. And then when they retire, they've built their retirement house. Whereas in Austria, it is categorically, you want to buy. So in my particular case, it's literally like one of my sister-in-laws, my father-in-law just gave her a field and said, there you go, build your own house at the bottom of the field. So it is it's an interesting sector, but the market in the UK, it's always been quite niche. But for all the economic reasons, there's a lot of good reasons why we should be doing far more self-build in this country, not only in terms of building what we actually want to live in to a quality that we would expect. And so there's a big appeal to do it here. The unfortunate problem in this country is the cost of land in comparison to parts of Europe.
How much, and I don't know, I'm throwing this out and completely wrong, potentially, very probably, is that how much is that the price of land being too high for people to be able to do it, because I'm assuming that's the way that you were saying it, is that so much of it was not actually self-build, it was always building commercially. So someone would buy land to go and build 5 houses and flog them off for as much money as they can make. Has that, I mean, you can't knock it, but it has that maybe, I'm going to probably come to you, Mark, on this one, has that impacted unfairly on the self-build market in its truest form?
Yeah, I think everybody faces the problem of affordability in the housing market because of what houses are worth when they're finished. And that's the essential ingredient when you're valuing a piece of land. So it's what you call a residual land valuation. You deduct the cost of building and what's left is the land value. So actually the land value is not the issue, it's how much these houses are worth when they're finished. And that applies to the whole of the market. Where it's been unfair to self-builders is the planning policy landscape. So lots of self-builders that come onto my course for the centre would be saying, I can't find a plot. And unfortunately, in planning policy terms, the development land that they'd be considering would be within settlements or connected to sustainable settlements, but not outside the settlement boundary. Whereas your big volume house builders can build on can extend a village or a town because they're helping to meet the housing crisis and provide homes, and therefore the council give consents for that. So they have the ability to build volume in places that self-builders can't reach. And therefore we're focused onto the 6% of land that's being developed in the UK, and we're all on top of each other, kind of fighting it out in those planning policies, and that makes it tough.
Well, I think, Chris, turning to you, and then you might fend this off into someone else to answer, feel free to, but one of the big things that was coming out that possibly does still help self-building is that someone buys a plot of land with already, I forget what you call it, when all the services are either planned or in place ready and the planning's there, but you actually buy it, it's more land than you might need, and you build what you want, but instead of doing the let's build another 3 houses, is that you sell off, and maybe they're not everything in place yet, you get that sorted, and you're now able to sell off 2-3 plots of land with all of the permission, with all of the services in place. is that a sort of a healthier route to go?
Well, it's in an ideal world, it might be. The trouble is, it's a small island, and there's a lot of people on this small island, and it's supply and demand. It's basic economics.
Yeah.
And someone once said, if you can afford a plot, you wouldn't want to live there, and if you want to live there, you can't afford it. And it's a scenario that keeps coming up. You know, I was talking to a couple this morning, and they said, "Oh yeah, well, early days. We haven't even got a plot yet." And I said, "Well, when you get a plot, you're halfway there, because it's such a monumental achievement to actually get a building plot." Now, there's no simple way around it, because evil of money comes into play, and that's the basic defining reason why you can't. It's
We
not
can't
readily
shortcut
available.
it. Yeah.
But I think you can.
Oh, really?
I don't think it's as difficult as people are thinking.
I'm interested.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Jens is going to be nodding in agreement with this as well.
I think it's been recognised by governments already. Back in 2016, we had the Right to Build legislation, which obligated councils to maintain a register of demand in their local authority areas. So anyone wanting to build their own house should be signing up to these registers. And the council, once they have a defined demand, have to then have regards to that demand when they're issuing their planning policies. So they should be making opportunities to meet the number of people within a certain period of time, called the base period, to meet that demand. What's happened more recently is we've had the Levelling Up Bill that's now become an act, and that's tightened these rules. So if the council, say, had 500 people on the register and they're only delivering 300 consents, those consents have to be specifically for customer self-built, not just any old house. And if they don't meet those numbers, they accrue and they add up. So the weight of obligation on the councils to meet the demand is increasing year on year. So we're now finding that the councils, in their planning strategies, are making land available, making it part of larger estates maybe, where there's a consent for volume house building, or there could be exception site policies. And there's all sorts of different tactics they're using, but we're having positive interventions. But what we need is people to sign up to the registers to put their mark down as a vote. Well, and then we get the support.
And I'd never heard of this. I mean, but then I guess why would I? But are you signing up to be doing it within a finite period of time, or are you saying I intend to, so I better put my name down?
Yeah, it's an intention. I want to build a house in this area.
And are you committing to a timescale, I guess?
Well, the base period is 3 years. From the date you put your name down, the base period that the council should be meeting that demand is within 3 years. But it doesn't mean if at the end of that you haven't found one, you give up and go away and don't.
I guess I'm thinking the other way is that if they suddenly turn around after a year, for our argument's sake, and go, "Yep, we've got something," you go, "Oh crap, I'm not quite ready."
No, well, I don't think it works that way. What the council can do is, if you've got something, you manage to get a consent, that will be a consent that's counted against the numbers of the demand.
Right.
So yeah, you've been satisfied and gone away, and hopefully the council should have enough policy in place to meet, say, the 500 people that have signed up.
Yeah.
But what we are seeing, this is where it gets a bit difficult. I don't think all the councils are being as supportive as they possibly can. Because why would they? They don't want loads of people on the register and loads of demands to meet.
Yeah.
But the consequence of them not doing it is that when developers like me that are going out there working with landowners to get consents and councils turn us down, we can then appeal. And then we win the appeals because then the inspectors are saying, well, hang on a minute, you're not meeting your demand.
Oh,
so that's why it's getting easier. There are tens of thousands of these plots in the pipeline coming down down into the marketplace. So there's plenty opportunity for public to do what they need to do to influence the outcome.
Okay.
Are these plots being made available?
Yes,
are they being
absolutely, yeah.
created?
I work with developers
all
all the time, large volume house builders, to explain how to move their land forward, how to meet the legislation, how to make it accessible. These pieces of land that developers are working on, the rules of how these are made available for self-builders are under a legal agreement called Section 106. So they're obligated to market them, they're obligated to sell them. There is a cascade if they can't sell them, what happens to them. But in terms of making them saleable, they have to be affordable. It has to be the price that someone can pay. It has to be evidence and things like that. You can't go out there and ask twice the amount of money then because there's people aren't being satisfied with plots. So I think the market's changing massively. And even though we've had a change of government, Angela Rayner, in meetings that NAXPR's had with her language is every lever counts to get housing because we need housing. So customer self-build is firmly part of the mix moving forward.
Yeah,
There's no wonder this place is so busy as a result of that.
We're expecting some changes later this year, aren't we? From the government.
Yeah, they'll continue to tweak the system to try and make sure that we don't know what those changes are going to be necessarily.
No, we don't. That's the problem.
Yeah, if we did,
Just know
we'd
there's
all be
something coming.
amazingly successful. But what we do know is that it's a big political agenda, and it's not going away. It's only going to get worse and worse. And until we build the numbers, the price of houses keep going up, and it's unaffordable.
Yeah. Do you sit there encouraged by not I don't mean what you're hearing now, because this is obviously you hear it every single day. Is there enough in there to be encouraged? You've gone into this with a niche from countries where it's not niche.
I think it is encouraging, but I think there's still a long way to go.
For sure.
I think the political will still needs to shift majorly into a higher gear. The local councils, whatever comes as a central edict, an edict from central government, still needs to really be understood by the individual councils. This is where we see immense frustration.
Sorry, we got one of the walkie-talkies. Sorry about that.
So I think there's still a long way to go, basically. But it is encouraging.
Encouraging, yes.
It is encouraging.
That's the big one, isn't it?
That's it.
I know that I'm going to wrestle this away because I feel that we could go down rabbit holes here if we're not careful. Let me get it back onto. We obviously have been provided with a few questions, one of which we already got rid of after speaking beforehand to keep ourselves out of trouble, didn't we? But how do each of you help clients turn their vision into reality? So from your perspective, there's one up there as well. Sorry, you've unplugged the headphones and we're getting feedback on them. It just goes to show it's live. That's all we were doing, is proving that we're live, okay? Right, sorry, where was I going? Right, so each of you from different angles will have, I love hearing you say, because I've heard it quite a lot, that you get to see the same people come back and they're at different stages on this dream. Let's put it that way. It's a dream that they're trying to fulfill, which I've had so many people in your positions tell me it's wonderful when you suddenly have them emotionally telling you, we're now here, we're now there, we've done that. How do each of you in your roles, I'm going to start this end this time, what do you do to help turn their dreams into reality?
Well, probably the first thing is to try and understand what their dream is. And very much in terms of their design of their property, what they envisaged, were they going to have slate, were they going to have an agricultural looking raised seam barn roof. Certainly from our perspective, it is really trying to understand what they envisage. And then the subtle bit is then trying to translate and explain to them what options there are and how close those options fit with what they were hoping to achieve.
And budgets surely is coming there as well.
And then, yes, and then the budgets come into it. And then particularly from our perspective, we also then have to gently explain to them that it's not how big a roof or how much space, because they may have a paddock, a field, whatever. It's not how much space for the solar. It's not how deep their pockets are, but to then unfortunately tell them that it's actually a third entity called the DNO, which is a subdivision of the national grid, who actually has the final decision as to how big a solar array they can actually have.
Oh, really?
Which comes as a bit of a shock to just about most people. So you have to navigate, and of course this is where step by step, so having understood what they're trying to achieve, trying to understand whether they want to be how independent of the grid, how energy efficient, to what can we achieve with their plot, and then having to then wrestle and work out what we actually will be allowed to install, and putting it all together.
Yeah.
It's something that we see more in the self-build sector than in the retrofit market, and there's a reason for that, and that's the thresholds that the DNO permit. So many people never hear about the DNO because their roof size, they will never actually get a system big enough to tip the threshold. Having said that, that is actually now changing, and that has to do with the power output. The increase in the panels has changed dramatically over the last 5 years, 5-6 years. So if you took an average suburban road with a sort of 1930s semi-detached, your average, you were probably getting about 8-10 panels on it. But 5 or 6 years ago, your average panel was 250 watts, which meant you were just coming up or just on the 3.68 threshold, which is when you then have to start talking to the DNO.
Yeah.
So in the past, historically, it really didn't matter because the panel output was at 250. Now our panels are 450.
So straight up to the threshold.
We're already peaking, so
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
already wanting to put a bigger inverter over the size of 3.68, so this is something that is actually changing in the retrofit market. But for the self-build sector, we are fortunate in so much that our roofs are bigger, which is why, so for companies like myself, we've always been engaged with the DNO for years, because we're in that fortunate position where we're designing and installing solar systems that are over and above this DNO threshold.
Fair shout. There's a lot more to it than people. So, in other words, the final one, because I'm constantly told I've got 5 minutes left, but is that it probably, again, like so many things we're finding, is that they should be speaking to you a lot earlier in the project than they probably realise.
Absolutely. As soon as even before they've got planning, because even in terms of the planning, it's not only about the design and the layout of the roof or the garage or the garden office, but it's also going back on that is to realistically, will they have an opportunity? Should they be upgrading to 3-phase, or are we engaging the DNO on a single phase?
Yeah.
So as early as possible.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's what we hear a lot. Whereas I guess, Chris, yours has always been right at the beginning, to be fair.
Ideally, yes. If we can meet them at the show and they've just got planning, they've got their plot and they're thinking about what they're going to do, and you can talk to them about what is possible, then they can, if they can imagine it, they can build it with ICF.
Yes.
ICF is very adaptable, and it's something that they can very readily do themselves. If they want to do it themselves, they've got an eye for detail, then they're perfectly qualified.
So am I right so where the question was, how can you help your clients turn to reality? Yours is that flexibility is what's jumping out at me.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. And because you can adapt it, you can change it on site, well, to plans, but you can design it to suit whatever you need. And they can look at what's already been built and see examples and then pick the best what suits them, and they can do it. So there's nothing more makes people more happy than to be building themselves. And to achieve
that way.
That. Yeah.
But no, I agree. Mark, I guess you're going to have to pick a particular area of all the bits that you're involved to be able to say, how do you help turn people's dreams into a reality?
Yeah, I think the obvious question people would expect me to answer would be, I build houses fine. But actually, increasingly, I don't think it's about building houses where I help the most. Self-building is a complex industry, but actually none of it is that complex that self-builders can't get their head around it. It's a little bit like looking at a motorway sideways and trying to pick out the makes of car and colours of car. You just can't see where you're heading. So what I do with people, I start right at the beginning and make sure the DNA of their project is deliverable. So I look at things like my business partner's a planner, so we do the planning appraisals. We then do things like get the budgets right, make sure the design fits the family brief, paint the picture of the journey that's particular to them, make the whole thing about them, get the DNA right, and then it's deliverable. If you don't get that right, you're heading down the wrong direction. You do the wrong things, you procure the wrong people at the wrong time. And even though these, there might be the great solutions, if it's the wrong fit, it just doesn't work for them. Yeah. So you've got to make their projects about them and enable them to unlock it in the self-build world. And I think I just pull back the veil on what seems to be a mystery, it really isn't. The centre is the hub of where I do that, by getting people down here and talking to them and going through the education and looking at their projects right at that DNA stage.
Included, presumably, the longevity. And what I mean by that is not the longevity in the sustainability sense, but as in, this is what I need now, but in the future, what happens if one of us become less mobile, for example, is an obvious one that jumps out at me with some amazing solutions I've seen here. Do you get them to try, and if they're thinking, they tell you this is our forever home, you've got to help them open their mind to what else should be in there in the future?
I think some of the mistakes people make are they jump to the solutions too quickly.
Absolutely.
Don't do that. Yeah. That's detail. Let that come out later. Let's get the brief right. So what do you want now? How do you want to live? How do you want to have breakfast? How do you want to interact with your family? And ask that question about how does this house grow with you over time? That might mean that you need to put a little bit more money in your budget to make provisions for a future lift. Well, that's not a lot of money. That might be a couple of £1,000 to be able to take a little area of the floor away. And then you can spend the £40,000-50,000 later when you need it.
Yes.
So it's future-proofing, just being sensible. And actually, when you start getting down to the nub of what you're after, that's why self-build is so popular. Because when you buy a house that's on the open market, you don't have that flexibility.
It is what
you get given what they're prepared, what they've already built, and it's not your dream.
Which is there would be the most economical build that they could get away with. And we were talking about housing regs are the least you can get away with, are basically that, aren't they? Whereas the idea of self-build, you go, no, I want this. Yeah. Whether that's the luxuries of what I want to do, whether it's the energy, whether it's, whatever, I want all of this. I genuinely, guys, I could keep talking forever with you, but I'm going to finish now. I'm going to come to you first, Chris. Why should someone come and see you and collectively within your organisation at the show? What would they come and find out? And I'm also going to point out that you are in the Build It Theatre, 2:00 tomorrow afternoon.
Is it 2:00?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll be there.
Battle of the building systems. You've got the different methods. Okay. But to come and speak to you normally, why should they come and speak to you? What can they find out?
ICF is a fantastic product. So many benefits. And it's something that people can genuinely build themselves. So it will help them achieve a dream. And just come and see us and we can tell you the benefits. And places like this are perfect. People need to expand their mind.
Yes.
Ask lots of questions of everybody, and then they can narrow it down to whatever suits them. Might not be our product, but it'd be something that suits them. So
and that for me is a big one. There's a reason why there's over 200 companies in the trade village, because there are that many different things to consider, different options within it. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. Go and find out the options. Some of them you will not even be aware of. Some of them don't prejudge. Go and have those conversations and take it that way. I'll jump back to you, Mark. First of all, what are you up to? You've already done today 11:45. And you've also got another one tomorrow at 11.
Yes, so I do a taster on how to find and appraise a building plot, which is the start of the journey, clearly. But I think you could come and talk to me about that. But I think what you should do is come down and ask that daft question that you daren't ask anybody else, and feel comfortable that as an independent expert, I'll be able to navigate that landscape that you might find just a little bit complicated. So it's a really safe place to come and just go, my problem is, how do I answer this? And I can guarantee I'll be able to get you to somebody in this centre that will be able to fill the detail in, be it a supplier or a professional or someone like that. But it starts by being just a little bit brave, coming in the centre and asking the daft question.
Nothing stupid to ask.
There's nothing stupid. Nothing stupid. And everybody's asked that before.
And it must be brilliant for you here to have all of this resource of all of these experts and companies and solutions that you can go, come with me.
One-stop shop. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's the place
It is.
to be. Absolutely.
It is. I didn't realise I was interested in self-build until I started walking around it and go, oh my God, this is amazing. Yen, yourself, why should someone come and speak to you? Before I say that, you are speaking tomorrow in the Sustainability Theatre at 10:30. Just in case you didn't know. So
Yeah.
but everyone else, so that they know you're going to be in
And
there.
just following on from there and linking it, I mean, that presentation is generic, it's impartial, and it's about the basic design elements. And I think it's because it's impartial, it's not about my business, it's about the key elements in the design to maximize your investment. And I think that echoes what this venue here at the National Self-Build Renovation Centre is a unique venue in the country, and it is there, and it's there to come and ask questions. No question is stupid. If you don't particularly work in our trade, how would you know the question or the answer? So it's the opportunity to come. And why come and speak to us? Well, because this is what we've specialised, and although, of course, we're an installation company and, we quite openly declare that we make our money from our installations, but the ethos and the motto of the company is consultancy first and foremost. If you don't know what you want or you don't know what the options are, you need to have the opportunity for someone to explain what is available for you.
Especially as a final comment, is that it's become a lot more combined in other areas. I know you were saying is that solar plus the battery storage plus the EV now,
Yep.
all of that stuff, and it just logically, instead of it being separate things, is it all comes under the same solution?
That's very much so. We are, as an industry, moving away, or multiple industries have effectively come together. It's now not selling one particular product. It's actually a general service.
Yeah.
It's a whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
Including the tariffs, the variable new tariffs that the utility companies are offering. So all in all, it's a much bigger picture, and at least here people can get the opportunity to actually understand how these different elements integrate, because that's the way you're actually going to maximize your investment and get the biggest benefit overall.
Apologies, guys, that I didn't get to go into some of the other questions I would like to have gone in, but hopefully it was a bit of an amuse-bouche for you all from these experts. In essence, what I'm really able to show you there is that this is exactly why you come down here. There are so many subjects we could have, should have gone into there. I just had them for 30 minutes maximum to go into a few areas, and it's deliberately with a mixed bag of expertises. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. That was really, really insightful and really useful. Get down here and see them tomorrow. Remember, you can jump online to the event page and you can actually get free tickets. It's free parking, everything. Get down here. Great vibe. So many people to see, as has been shown by this. But from the three guests, myself, thank you very much for joining us. And that was our final panel session for today. We've got one more room that is kind of a mini room because we'll be wrapping up. But remember, they're all here, even if the show's not. See you soon. Cheers.